Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of Women in Sports Unplugged. Our guest today is Karunya Keshav. Karunya is an author, cricket journalist, and digital media consultant based in Bangalore. She co authored The Fire Burns Blue, a history of women's cricket in India with Siddhanta Patnaik. The book draws from her experience of 12 years in journalism, including in cricket for the past 7 years, watching and writing about cricket from around the world for Wisden and the ICC. Thank you so much, Karunya, for coming on this show. I'm so delighted to have you here today and to speak with you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let me start by asking you, what does sports mean to you?
Sports started off as a passion, started off just as a casual interest, and now it's become my career. It's also something that's given me some of my best friendships. And I met my husband because we shared a passion for sports as well. Uh, for the past 7 years, I've been working just with cricket, and it's given me a chance to sort of meet people, um, see the world, and sort of discover um, what to value in life as well, because sports carries so many lessons that we can transfer to the rest of life as well.
Well, I think that's such an important point, the values that you get from sports, which you can transfer to other parts of life. I come from the corporate world, and we used to say if you want to judge the character of a person, see how that person is actually on a sports field. You know, the way they are when they are stressed or teamwork, etc., etc. But at that point you said about friendships, I so truly believe that sports brings people together. And you know, when you're watching a game or something, and friendships happen. But tell me, you mentioned, you know, you've been traveling the world and following cricket. So how did your association with cricket begin?
It started quite by accident. So I used to work with the Hindu on the regular news desk, doing some small stories for the city edition in Bangalore. And I heard about an opening with Wisden Almanac. It was honestly the chance to work with really great writers was what appealed to me more than actually maybe the cricket aspect of it. And I began doing more of reporting just accidentally. It, my organization was something that did allow a lot of these opportunities. Um, I started doing a lot of women's cricket, possibly because not too many other people wanted to do it. I was attracted to the grassroots stories. I was attracted to the stories in women's cricket, and that just grew into a real passion, and ended up writing a book about it as well.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned about the book, and I'm so glad you're started following women's cricket. But tell us a little bit about the genesis of the book, The Fire Burns Blue. I love the name. I love the title, by the way. You could tell us a little bit about that as well. But I'm very interested to know about the genesis of the book.
So the book has been written in association with Siddhanta Patnaik, who was my colleague. He's no more. He passed away recently from cancer. But he was again someone who was really passionate about grassroots cricket and women's sport. So he had this thing that he used to really enjoy saying that he doesn't care what Kohli is doing. He'd watch it and know all about it. But what really got him going with these grassroots stories about what Kohli was 15 years ago before he started, and the, the thousands of children, boys and girls who are um, so passionate about cricket and want to get into the sport. So we did a few projects together. We used to talk a lot of cricket together. We just worked really well together. He wanted to write a book on women's cricket, and our editor on the Wisden Almanac, Suresh Menon, he also suggested that we actually do this. Uh, but for the longest time, there was no interest from the publisher. There were, I think, for maybe about a year, we were trying to get this going. It was only after the 2017 World Cup in England. There was this brilliant innings by Harmanpreet Kaur in the
Yes.
semi-finals against Australia, which really changed so much. So Siddhanta, I, and another colleague of mine, Sneha Pradhan, we were the only three Indian journalists in England covering this World Cup. And at the start of the tournament, there were maybe, again, two or three journalists, even even from England itself, who were at the press boxes. By the end, by the semifinals, by the finals, it was packed. Lords was packed, and I think it was the case with the spectators as well. Lords was sold out for that match. Everyone was watching it on TV. Everyone was following it on social media, and that really changed things for women's cricket. And after that, a whole lot of publishers themselves got in touch with us and said, you guys keen on writing this book? So over the next 9 months, even while Stava was working through his illness, we spoke to about, I think, around 100 people associated with women's cricket, both past and present, both players, administrators, family members of players. And yeah, the book came about. As for the title, so I think blue is the color we associate with uh, cricket in India.
Yes.
But what really stood out for us in all these stories was just this fire that was there in these women who started playing cricket. So it wasn't, you know, in the 70s when they started playing it, there was no plan saying, okay, I want to do, I want to be this kind of cricketer. It was just like, I want to go out and play. I just, we'll see what happens. Whatever happens, I'm just going to go do it. And I think that was this drive that really appealed to us, that we noticed through our reporting over the years as well, and something that we really wanted to capture. And I think that sort of defines Indian women's cricket. So yeah, that we decided to name the book that.
Oh, well said, well said. And I have to say it's a very striking title, and I must recommend to all the viewers and listeners today that if they should go and get hold of that book. And it's a book which I would say it's a tribute to women's cricket, and I'm so glad that you and Siddhanta actually wrote it. So earlier this year in Wisdom, you had written women's IPL in UAE. Indian women need it, but it's a setback for the global game. So, do you think, in your view, the Indian women's team need to play more bilateral tours versus playing, an IPL kind of tournament?
No, the IPL is a women's IPL is essential. The setback was because this wasn't a proper women's IPL. It was just 4 matches
Yes.
uh, that are still being played as an exhibition tournament. It it didn't seem like there was too much preparation. It didn't seem like there was real understanding of what it meant to have the best players from the world around. It also clashed with the WBBL, which was happening in Australia, which was a lost opportunity for players from India who might have gone there if not for this. But in so yeah, so women's IPL I think is something we absolutely need right now. But what you mentioned about bilateral cricket is also really important. As we're recording this, there's a test going on, a men's test going on. The men have played a full IPL. They've played pretty much a full series in Australia right now. But
Yes.
there was this really striking comment that Harmanpreet Kaur and Smriti Mandhana, who are two top players,
Yes.
made during the women's IPL, where they said that we don't know when we're playing next. And for a women's team who played at the at a record-breaking World T20 final earlier this year in March before everything shut down, to not know when they're playing a match is quite shocking. And in general, that means that there should be a lot more bilateral tournaments that are organized.
Yes. No, and I think, yeah, you're right. Like the men's team is playing right now as we speak, the test matches going on. And they, like you said, they played a full IPL and it was a grueling schedule for them. And then they played the one day internationals and then they played a T20 tour and now they're playing this. And test cricket is so important for just the world of cricket, right? They always say when a player stops playing test cricket, then you can see how his cricket game also gets affected. But tell me, in your view, what, and you've been following the women's cricket team so closely. What are some of the challenges that the women's cricket team is still encountering? It has come a long way, but what, in your view, are some of the challenges which are still there?
You just mentioned Test cricket. I think that's the biggest thing. They don't play Test cricket anymore. Unofficially, They haven't played a test since, if I'm not mistaken, 2014, 2015, around at that season. Um, how is the play? You just mentioned that the test cricket is what players measure themselves by, and the women's team don't get to play a test. So that is a real concern. Um, Other than that, I'd say so. The good thing about women's cricket in India right now is that they do have access to facilities. So the infrastructure for cricket, at least at the top levels, is really strong. So the women do have that. What they don't have is a proper planning. So as I just mentioned, the men have traveled so much. They know exactly what they're going to be doing next year,
Yes.
despite the whole pandemic. The women don't. So there needs to be this one person in charge. There need to be more women in positions of leadership who can actually sit down and take these decisions with a 5 year plan, a 10-year plan to say this is what we want for women's cricket. Um, and besides that, um, another thing about women's cricket in India, at least, is that apart from the top cricketers who have contracts, the players playing at the domestic level don't. So on one hand, like now this whole season, they haven't had any matches to play. There's been no communication of a domestic series. How are they going to get their money? So they can't depend on cricket for their income. So they need another job. But also the only employer or the major employer for women's cricketers in India right now is the railways. So there obviously needs to be more opportunities. There needs to be some sort of interaction with the BCCI and corporates to say, okay, we want more women. We're willing to hire more women, which allows them to play as well as work and get support themselves financially. And they, uh, even in terms of domestic cricket itself, we really do need a proper contract system for women that allows themselves to support themselves uh, by playing cricket. Um, Another thing I'd really like, I think a challenge is there's still a lot of social barriers. We've heard a lot of stories over the past few years about how this whole pandemic has really held back women, especially in terms of mobility. All those issues are things that do get translated into the number of girls that do take up cricket as well. Um, so, so in general, having a sort of campaign that can really change how people view female cricketers and female sports persons in general, that would be helpful.
Yes, no, I completely agree. You mentioned about doing a campaign to create more awareness, if we can use that word, around women's cricket. And that was going to be actually my next question. That in every field, if you see, for women to reach the top or to succeed, you need role models as well. So, how, in your view, can we create more popularity for this game? I mean, Harmanpreet Kaur and Smriti Mandhana, I mean, there's now names which are household names, right, after the 2017 World Cup. But how can we create more awareness, more popularity? It will also help these girls, right? Then there'll be more advertising contracts, more job opportunities for them. So, what, in your view, can be done differently from what we've seen in the last couple of years?
That's a pretty tricky question. I think any efforts need to come from both the BCCI and state associations, um, the cricketing fraternity itself, as well as organizations outside of it, so corporates who understand the value of investing in women's cricket, who understand the marketing potential of investing in women's cricket. There was a really interesting story I read a couple of days ago. I think this is with the ABC network in Australia, where they've made a commitment um, to saying that they will have 50% coverage for women's sports. And they will also be getting on more women to talk about sports, whether it's women's sports or men's sports. So there is this commitment to making it 50-50. That sort of initiative is something that's really needed in the media as well. I think the figure for women's sport in US recently was just that around 4% to 10% of all media coverage was for women's sports. So it requires something from the media themselves to say this is something, this is a commitment that we're going to make. We are going to employ more women. We are going to have more female editors, and we are going to cover a lot more um, women's sport. Um, so that is definitely one aspect of it. What the administration themselves can do is, again, back this campaign, have a campaign, take these cricketers to schools. There's a really interesting program, I think, in the UK, which is called Chance to Shine, where they get a lot of the top cricketers to go to schools, play cricket for a few hours with these players. There are these coaching manuals as well that they're part of, and that's a campaign that's had a lot of success. So being able to reach schools and just take away the um, uh, all these various barriers that are there for women to play cricket or any sport, that would be helpful.
No, I think you brought out two very important points, and especially when you talked about the campaign and schools. So, Sports Village, who's co-creating this show, I think they're doing a lot to create awareness about sports in general between boys and girls in India. And you talked about the media. Uh, I just said in Australia how they said that 50% that they will do this. So, even in the corporate world, when they said that the board should have 30% women. A lot of people said, oh, they're bringing a quota system. But, sometimes you just have to do that so that more role models are created. And similarly, if it's enforced in a certain way, I'm shocked to know that it's less than 4%, what you mentioned in the US, which is women's sports being covered. So if there is like a quota that you have to do at least 25% coverage has to be on women's sports and those related issues, it'll just force them to do it, and then it'll automatically develop. So I thought both those points were really critical. But you talked about a social bias. So this was a question which I wanted to ask you before we go to the fun section of the talk, which is a rapid fire round. There is this social bias generally, women in sports, and that was one of the reasons we started this show, because we realized that 1 in 1,000 women play sports. A lot of women you meet, they are fit, they're into fitness, they'll say, okay, we exercise, we do yoga, we run, etc. But 1 in 1,000 women play sports. So given your close proximity to at least the world of cricket and the women there, what message would you like to give to girls out there to actually look at sports, and not only just as a fitness thing, but even as a career? What would your message be?
I, I think you probably need to ask someone who's actually played more sports. I just watch a lot of it. Um, but I think one thing I would like to share is that there is uh, there are a lot of stereotypes associated with being a girl and being a girl in sports. I think that shouldn't matter. You can be a girly girl and love sports. You can be you can choose to be anything you want. Um, you don't have to fit a certain mold to play sport. Uh, the wonderful thing that I've noticed about while covering women's sport is that it's extremely inclusive. Uh, Everyone is welcome to play. Everyone is welcome to watch it and talk about it. It's a wonderful community, and if more young girls can understand can see this community or get to experience it, I think they'll benefit.
I think that's such an amazing message to give to the young girls, and that you can develop a community as well, and like you said, it was so inclusive when you watch them, and and as a girl, don't think that this is something which I can't do. I think that's so important across all professions. Women should not they should not think that being a woman is a limitation. I think women have the capability to actually do multitask, honestly. So I truly believe in that. So Really, really good messages. So now we have come to the fun part of the talk. So this is the rapid fire round. I'm going to say 5 words, and then you have to tell me whatever word comes into your mind. Okay? Are we good to go?
Yeah,
Okay. The first word, this is going to be really easy. Book.
fire burns blue.
Yes. The second word is food.
Home.
I think we've all discovered the love of home food during the pandemic. Absolutely. Nothing to beat home food. The third word is music.
Eclectic.
Hmm, okay. Interesting. Fourth word is sports.
Life.
I like that. The last word is family.
Support.
I really like that. Karunya, I really enjoyed speaking with you, and a lot of very interesting messages you brought out. And I'm again going to tell the viewers that they must try and get hold of your book. Very interesting perspectives you brought out in the book. Friends, I hope you all enjoyed the talk as much as I did. You can find this on my podcast channel on Spotify and Apple iTunes, Zip Talks. You can find it on YouTube on hashtag ziptofitness and on my Instagram page, ziptofitness. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Radha.